Hi everyone, this is Shirley from Shirley's World, and yes, we had some snow yesterday, still sticking all over the place, and it's cold out today, so staying in again. I hope the wind doesn't get as bad as it was yesterday. Hi, I'm home. I'm going to do some things on the computer. Tomorrow is Menu Monday, where I post my menu for the week. So I have to write it out today, have it all ready, and put it on. I've been reading a lot of garden books. I'm getting the itch. It's springtime, and I have to go buy some seeds. And I ran across, when I was going through my garden books, I have a lot of herb books, and I really would like to plant a bigger herb garden this year, maybe back by where I used to have my herb garden, behind the barn, which is really my garage. I call it the barn now because it has a chicken coop in it. But that was a really good space for it. It had good drainage, and it was in all sun, and herbs mostly need all sun. So that it flourished back there until I didn't garden. I stopped gardening for a few years when my husband was really sick and was home here with a hospice and everything. So that's when my gardens went amok. I lost my perennial gardens in the back. The ivy just took over in a matter of a couple years. And my herb garden just got too bad to keep up. And my vegetable garden, I sort of let it go. It was a lot of work. It was huge. It was, for me, it was huge. It was like 20 foot by 30 feet. And I'm going to be putting some on my blog, which is shirleysworld.blogspot.com. I have that here someplace written out so I can show you. It's buried under all this stuff. Anyway, it's shirleysworld.blogspot.com. And I'm going to post some previous pictures of my beautiful gardens and my herb garden, which I hope to get back. So I've been reading some up on my herbs. I used to know a lot about herbs. When I had an antique shop, in Avon, Ohio, in the French Creek district. And around the first little century home I had my antique shop in, I had herb gardens all around there. I sold dried herbs, and I sold, I just had read up so much about herbs that I knew a lot about herbs and how to make oil from herbs and tincture and all that, those things. I've forgotten a lot of it, so I want to catch up on my reading as long as I can't be gardening in the snow. So I'm reading. Hi Jim, Christy. I'm reading a lot about herbs and gardening in general. I pretty much have the gardening down pat, but the herb part I've got to learn again. It'll come back to me, I'm sure. Anyway, while looking through all my herb books over there here in the library on my shelves, I came across this journal that I had started when we first moved into this house. It's a journal. It started in June of 1997. And it's all written in pencil, and each year I would put a diagram of my big garden, of what I planted where, so that when in the next year I could sort of switch things around and plant things in different places so they would be real healthy. So I read through this. It's so interesting. Now, this started, what, 19 years? It's been 19 years since we first moved into this house, and I started this huge job of transforming these yards to beautiful gardens. And it's all written in there. My husband was not a gardener. He didn't like to do that kind of thing. So I mostly did the gardening by myself. He did some of the really heavy things that I couldn't do. Like move a huge boulder into one of the gardens, which he had to get 2 of his friends. It took 3 men to roll this huge boulder into a garden. Also, he usually would do the first rototilling of the big garden when the ground was hard. He'd do the first pass at least, and then I would take over. At that time, I had a big Troy-built rototiller. When it got to be, just a few years ago, it got to be I couldn't handle that one anymore. And I sold it. And the man that bought it, he came the first 2 years after I sold it to him, and he rototilled my garden for me, which was really nice. But then I didn't hear from him anymore. So I bought myself one of those little Mantis rototillers, because my garden I made much smaller. And the Mantis worked for the first couple years, or the first year really. It's so hard to start. I should have gotten the better one. One is a 2-cycle motor. I think that's the one I got, that you have to mix gas and oil. Is that right? And then there was one, a 4-cycle. It was $200 more for the 4-cycle one with the better motor. It had a Honda motor. And that's what I should have gotten. I even said it was much easier to start. Well, this one I can't even start by myself anymore. It's pretty much become useless. Sometimes my handyman, hi Susan Sailboat, I was just listening to your scope. Hi. I can't start it anymore. My handyman sometimes can get it started. What he uses it for usually, is to turn over. He uses it to turn over my big compost pile, and it works for that really well. So you don't have to, lift all that stuff by hand. If you go through it with a little rototiller, it turns it over really well. I wish I could start the thing so I could do it, because it's light enough that I can handle it if I can just get it started. I need to take it to the actually to the Mantis place and have them tune it up and fix it for me. Maybe I'll do that this year. There's always other things you have to do that are more important, it seems. So, hi Judy, thanks for joining. Talking about gardening and things I'm going to do on the computer today. Yeah, I always am going to buy this shrub and that shrub and replace this and that, and when it comes down to it, then me too. I have to buy stones for the drive this year. I have a long driveway, so that's expensive. Then I have to buy, mulch, and I have to get a couple yards of dirt, topsoil, to use in my gardens. And my handyman is going to make me another garden box. I have 2 that are 4x8s, and I want another one. So I'll have 3 of them, and that should be good for me. But I always plant 2, and then there's always more things I want to plant, and I don't have room. So I want 1 more. Who knows, maybe then I'll want another one. But I like the raised garden beds. they're just, I think they're like 1x8 boards or 1x6 boards, whatever they come. Yes, I live in an old farmhouse. My farmhouse is 160 years old. It was built, maybe older. It was built in 1850, my house. I love it. I love old houses, especially old farmhouses. I'm in Northeast Ohio, where the weather is not good right now this week. But spring is coming and gardening is coming, so it makes me very happy. I rescue for the Pointer Rescue Organization, so I always have one or two, I usually have 2 English pointers. Right now, I lost one to lung cancer just a couple months ago, and I have Dexter, which is my male English pointer. He was a rescue. He's an architect. Oh, you know what I would love on this house? I would love to be able to afford an architect to build a front porch, a big, big porch on this farmhouse that looked like it came with the farmhouse. You know, this is a federal style house, so I'm not sure if they had porches or not, but I would just love that, but I can't afford it. Spill. This house has a little kitchen porch. Goes out off the kitchen that I use a lot, and has a little front porch, just, you know, to step out onto and go down the steps, but that's it. Like your grandpa's? Yeah, does he have a big front porch? We had my uncle that lived way out in the country in Pennsylvania. They had a big old farmhouse with a huge porch on it that I remember when I was a kid. We used to sit out on the porch in the summer. Yeah, I love the country. 19 years ago we moved out here. At that time I told my husband I had to get out of the city. I had to have a garden. We lived on a tiny little postage stamp size lot in the city. I couldn't have any garden or anything to speak of, you know. So I told him I had to get to the country. Get me to the country. So we searched and searched for this house, and actually we were riding around the area. I liked this area with my real estate agent, who was a friend of ours. And we came past this house. It wasn't for sale. There was no for sale sign in front of it. And I pointed it out and I said, that's the kind of house that I want. And my real estate friend says, wait, back up, pull in the driveway. So we backed up, pulled in the driveway, and she actually went in, knocked on the door, went in and talked to the man, and here he was just about to put it up for sale. This was meant to be. So anyway, we bought this house. He moved to North Carolina, I think. I only have 1 square acre. I would love to have about 5 acres. That's what I'd like to have. But yeah, so we moved out here, and it's actually surrounded by a golf course. My husband was an avid golfer, so I think that's the only way I got him out into the country, because he was a policeman, a cop in the little city that we lived in, a suburb of Cleveland, and he had quite a drive for a short time, and then he retired. But yeah, and all his friends were, of course, in Parma, which was this little suburb we lived in. And he liked to golf at that golf course. So even though we were surrounded by this golf course, we only played on this golf course a few times. He didn't like this golf course. Yeah, log house. We looked at log cabins too when we were looking at houses. But there's a lot of care to a log house. Yeah. Homer scopes. Oh, Homer. There's a lot of care we found out to log cabins, so we went for this farmhouse, which was the perfect house for me. So anyway, I put in gardens, didn't have hardly any gardens at all. I put in big gardens, which I'm going to post on I'm going to post pictures of how my gardens used to be. And they got too much for me to take care of, and they've just gone to ivy, actually. But I do keep a front garden behind the picket fence. I have some big, fairly good-sized gardens. I do keep them up, and with help of my handyman. The thing that kills me with gardens is thistle. I don't know if you fight thistle at your house or not, Susan, but I have, when it takes over, if you don't keep up with it practically every day, yeah, I've stopped using all bad fertilizers and weed killers because I do have in fact, I have one of those signs. It's a humane backyard back there. Yeah. Of course, the grass sort of looks like a mess, but what I was going to call our feed store, and I have to reseed. I have chickens, so they go out into a big area which I have fenced off with poultry fencing. But of course, they take the toll on that area, so I have to reseed it this year. But I want to reseed it with natural grasses and like a pasture grass. So I have to call and find out what would be the best thing to reseed it with. And do some work. And if there's anything that I could like throw down that wouldn't hurt the chickens to make the grass grow better. I don't know if, I don't know what it is. I have to talk to the garden centers and talk to the feed store about that. Yeah. So anyway, I was going to work on the computer today, read some more of my herb books. And the only thing left in my herb garden, I did a Snapchat the other day about my herb garden in the back. And I have, what's left in there is garlic chives, onion chives, and comfrey. And I was talking about comfrey. And here, Linny Motivates was on, and she's an herbalist, and she talked about comfrey at the same time, which was really a coincidence. So I learned a lot from her, too. I don't have cilantro because I don't like it, so I never planted it. I'm one of those people, half the people love it and half the people hate it. I'm on that list of I don't like it, the taste of it at all, so I never use it. But I have so many other herbs. Pasture mix works well. Okay. Homer, you're an ag guy. Okay. I will get some of that. I hope I can get a smaller amount. I saw some at Tractor Supply or at the feed store, and it was like 100 pounds. I can't use 100 pounds of it. I can't lift 50 pounds anymore. Oh, you're a retired ag teacher. Oh, wait, you would be very helpful to me. Yeah, what could I scatter down on the grass that's out there right now that won't hurt animals or the chickens, especially the chickens, because they, peck things out of the ground. I want something like some nitrogen stuff to give it a boost. Is there something I can put down that won't hurt the chickens if, you know, they peck around in it? That's what I need to know right now, because I could scatter it around probably right now, because the snow will melt and water the grass. Oh yeah, I do leave the dandelions. I've gotten to love the dandelions since I've had chickens, because they love the dandelions. And I know they're one of the first flowers that attract bees. Yeah, I do. I like them. So in the summer, when I have a lot of them and the chickens are just out in their run, I dig up some dandelions and throw them into them. But yeah, they love dandelions. Yeah, I know. I save it. It's in my compost pile. It's what makes my compost so rich and nice. I just put some, I found an old can of coffee grounds. I know they're very acidic, but they're ground, but they were unused, but very stale. I think they had a due date of like 2012 on them. So I did make a pot of it and tasted it, and it wasn't that good. So I just scattered this big can of coffee all over my big compost pile and dug it in. I don't think it's too much for that, and it'll compost down. I put all my ground coffee. I save all my food and stuff in a little can in the house and put it in my compost pile. Last year, sometimes my compost pile does not heat up as good as it should, and I need more grass clippings. And the man that cuts my grass in the summer, you don't use anything? The man that cuts my grass, the mower that he had that was attached, that had the collectors that where he'd collect the grass, broke down, and so most of the last half of the year he didn't collect the grass. He just it mulched it and it went into the ground. But I need a bunch of grass clippings in my mulch pile to heat it up, because I have mostly brown things in there. So yeah, I do have some really good looking earth under there, under that first little layer. So I'll be putting a lot of that in my garden too, because it's composted down. Yeah, it takes, it does. I thought it would compost pretty quick, being so small, small. I know it's acidic. Can you scatter, I can scatter some around my azalea bushes and acid-loving plants, right? Yeah, I didn't know it took a lot to compost coffee grounds. I throw my coffee grounds, and I have the unbleached coffee filters. I throw them in, throw all that stuff in my compost pile. Not as quick as the leafy. Well, I'll tell you, I have big, huge oak trees in the back. Those oak leaves do not compost very quickly. Maybe the rest of the leaves do, but those big oak leaves, they seem to last forever in there. I need to chop them up more. I need to chop the oak leaves up. I need one of those grinder chopper things that you chip, a chipper. See, there's another thing I could buy. I'm on a budget. I can't buy all the stuff I'd like to buy. Make your flowers large. Ah, yeah, soft leafy, like vegetables. Yeah, I do put vegetables in there. All my cuttings that I don't eat. Yeah, okay. I take a pot, the container that I use to put in, that I have in the kitchen, about every other day I empty that into my compost pile. It's gotten to be huge. I should have made it when I first started it. It gets a little too much shade. It doesn't get quite enough sun. I think that's another problem I have. But it does get sun part of the day. But I can't wait to start my gardens and get this herb garden back to what it should be. You keep yours in a gigantic garbage can. I noticed yesterday when I took some out, something had gotten moldy down in my little can. It's only about this big. It's not very big, but something in the bottom got moldy. I don't know what it was. I didn't look. I hope it doesn't hurt things. I threw it way in the back of the mulch pile, dug it down. But I probably shouldn't have put that in there, but I did. I'm not sure. It was something probably, maybe it was just a sugar mold. It was pretty fuzzy. I don't know what it was. Does coffee mold, like the ground coffee that you use, in my filters? Yes, it does. I try to turn it myself, but it's gotten so big that in the hot summer, I just can't do it. So, but my handyman does it for me, so that's good. But he doesn't come that often. Yeah. I have 1 square acre here. 1 square acre. So it's been so nice talking to some garden people today. Yeah. I knew this storm was coming, this snowstorm, so I went out yesterday, filled all my bird feeders, because I love to feed the birds. And they're busy on the bird feeders today. And so I've also found some really old articles on this old yellowed newspaper. Somebody had sent this to me about hummingbirds. There's 2 articles, this one and another one they sent me. And I'm going to, I had written an article on hummingbirds a while back on my blog. I wrote a big post, maybe a couple posts on hummingbirds. I usually like to write one once in a while on one of the types. I found an article on mourning doves. If you see me looking out the window here, it's because there's a lot of birds out in this garden here. I don't know what, some are the mourning doves, and they're on the ground. There must be some seeds that have dropped down from my garden there that they're getting. You're a nature photographer? My daughter is a photographer. Yeah. She doesn't do nature. She does equine and pets mostly. But she also does high school seniors, not the school pictures, high school seniors that want something different. And she does some family and some glamour. But she really loves the equine and the pet photography. We have horses, so that's how she came into the equine photography. I have 2 horses. They're boarded elsewhere because, of course, 1 square acre isn't big enough to have horses. But I have pointers, I have pointer dogs, and I have chickens and barn cats. What I do need to get is, I've always had house cats, but mine died of old age. I think the last one died like a year ago, and I haven't gotten any new one. And, in an old house that's 150, 160 years old, mice get in the house. So do chipmunks, actually. Because my basement isn't like a finished basement, of course. It's a cellar. And there's lots of ways that they can get in. So they always come in for the winter. And I need my cats back. I need to get a couple house cats that are good mousers. So I'll be doing that this spring too. I have new spring chicks coming April 25th. I'm getting 6 new chicks. They'll be in the house for about 6 weeks. Hi, Mike. And they'll be in the brooder in the house here for 6 weeks before they can go out into the coop. So, hi. So I will be posting and periscoping about my little chicks when they get here. April 25th they get here. I'm doing good. Yeah. I have to stay in today because it's very cold out and we had snow. Snow. It seems so much worse when it comes in the spring, doesn't it? So I wanted to say hi to my sister. She always catches me on the replay. And I got my hair cut, Sue. I got cut Friday. This is needed cut. It was getting kind of shaggy. So I'm going to close now and do some work on the computer, make my menu for next week, and maybe make a fire in my fireplace because it's chilly in my family room, and read up on some herbs some more. So I will be on tomorrow or another day or maybe later today. So bye for now. So glad you all came. Bye.